categories for people who regulate agencies and people who regulate the facilities themselves?
Okay, what happens in that environment when you have, who oversees the Department of Health Services? All right, well, who oversees the Department of Health Services is at a secretary level. It's at a very high level. In California, it would be the Secretary of Health and Welfare, and that's an appointment by the governor, and I believe that might even be a cabinet level position. But that is the agency that oversees the Department of Health Services, which ultimately is responsible for what happens in the nursing homes. So obviously in every government, the governor is really responsible for the operations of the state. So in all reality, every governor of every state has the ultimate responsibility. I mean, the buck stops with that governor. But you've got different layers. It's just like a corporate structure. So the person who's really at the very top is really the one where the buck stops, like President Truman used to say, the buck stops with me. So that's where really it's the ultimate responsibility of the governor to make sure that all the programs in California are being administered properly. And that includes the administration of nursing homes and the amounts of money that are going to nursing homes, because most of the residents are under federal and state programs, Medicare, Medicaid, and in California we have Medi-Cal. So there's a lot of government funds that are funding these nursing homes, so there should be plenty of accountability for where our tax dollars are being spent.
The licensing is done by DHS. The overseeing is done fragmentedly by DHS, because everything falls under that umbrella. Although some of the human beings who regulate those agencies,
workers, right. The licensing staff in nursing homes are being monitored. Their particular role is being monitored by different agencies other than DHS. Medical board, nursing board, administrators board. Although recently in California, the Nursing Home Administrators Board has moved to the Department of Health Services. It used to be under Consumer Affairs. So and I don't know why that was changed, but it used to be nursing home administrators. That particular license fell under Consumer Affairs.
Wow.
Department of Social Services, Consumer Affairs. But since about a year now, it has moved under Department of Health Services.
Gotcha. Okay.
One other thing, that there is another element, and I don't know what the statistics are and what the percentage is, but most nursing homes, the operator comes in and runs the operation under the roof of that facility. That doesn't mean that the nursing home operator is the owner of the building. So the owner of the building is usually, a lot of them are investment trust funds, a lot of them are individual people that own these buildings that charge rent. So when you have problems in the nursing homes that are really not medically related, like poor air conditioning, no heat during the wintertime, things like that, there's another element here, and that's the property owner.
Talk to us about the various types of licensing that residential care facilities have, and after that assisted living.
Okay.
Who does it, what types there are, what kind of regulations they have to follow in order to get that certification.
In the residential care environment, obviously it's for people that are ambulatory, that are not incontinent, basically can maybe go in and out, maybe not, maybe a little dementia, but basically, some of their needs can be taken care of. They're not wheelchaired, and that is regulated by Department of Social Services. Community care licensing is what the licensing office is called, community care licensing. It's basically private pay, so there's not Medicare or Medi-Cal, Medicaid is not providing monies to that environment. It's usually a little bit cheaper to live in that environment, less expensive to live in that environment, and a lot of times maybe it's people will accept Social Security checks for payment, and now they're developing a lot of companies that are doing placement for your family, referral services, placement, and they'll help you out. So, but there's no type of government aid for that type of environment. Then you go to assisted living. Assisted living, again, is under the Department of Health Services, licensing different than residential care facilities. Assisted living is where you need, maybe a little help with your meals. You need maybe some medication. You need to get helped in and out of bed, maybe. But and I believe that now some assisted livings, I think, do take wheelchair people. But prior to that, I don't think you could be in a wheelchair and live in an assisted living. Then you go from assisted living into long-term care skill, and that's where you are you're not ambulatory. A lot of the people are incontinent. And of course, I have this philosophy that sometimes people go into the into the nursing homes after surgery in an acute hospital, and they go in for rehab. Well, those are two different clients. You've got short-term and you've got long-term care clients. Acute hospitals now want to get you out of their hospitals as soon as possible. Nursing homes now are places for rehabilitation, for physical therapy, short-term stays. And normally that is paid for if you're over 65 on Medicare. Medicare will pay for that. And if your Medicare days run out, then if you're low income, Medicaid or Medi-Cal would pick up after that. And depending on what type of care and rehab you get in the facility, you could go home, or you could become a long-term care patient. I've seen that a lot. But always keep in mind, though, as a consumer, the choice is yours. You do not have to go to a nursing home. Nobody forces you to go to a nursing home. But if you choose to do that for a rehabilitation, that you have the right to proper placement for your family member. So you have the right to pick that nursing home. And if there is a facility in your area that is not agreeable to you, the acute hospitals cannot send your relative to a nursing home or any type of placement without your approval. So that's very important for the consumer to know that you have the right to pick placement. When you have a family member that's in one of these environments, not only do you have a family member in these facilities and a loved one that you want to protect, but you're also a consumer. And so you want to ensure that you have the knowledge of what's available to you as a consumer to ensure the safety of your relative in these facilities. And so there's the emotional side of a family member, a loved one, but then there's also the other side as a consumer and what your rights are and the knowledge that you need to gather to make decisions and know where to go if you have problems. And again, I'll reiterate that most people in nursing homes, the monthly fees for taking care of those people are coming from government dollars. So we're coming from our consumer tax dollars. So you have a right to know how your tax dollars are being spent. I think people need to know, though, when you're under the system, the government system, how it works, and to look at your Medicare billings and making sure that your family member does get that treatment. Because this is a vehicle for a lot of fraud. Because you've got a patient there who's compromised. A lot of them are very elderly. They don't know whether or not they got a pill that day, or if they got therapy that day, or if they ate that day. So, as a consumer, for our watch spent, Under the Medicare system, Medicare sends out copies of services. I would check those, make sure your family member gets those services. Or be there when they're scheduled for physical therapy, be there when they're scheduled for occupational therapy, and make sure that they do in fact get that treatment.